Yo, my name is Lucky Puppy, your Luck Dragon VTuber, and today we're looking at Final Fantasy 16, a game that seemingly only wants to do the bare minimum to be part of the franchise. If you enjoyed this type of content,
remember to like and subscribe.
But if you're a fan of Final Fantasy 16, type Limit Break in the comments below. Have you ever looked at Final Fantasy, not you, and thought, I see the final, but where did my fantasy go? This was something I had to ask myself as I played. I saw a world that was shiny on the surface, but underneath the whimsy, embellishments of reality, the imagination of the game has just been straight up watered down, or cut out. For instance, the side content is unmemorable. I could barely tell you what the character names were for Final Fantasy 16 outside of the main character, Clive. This is not a video I thought I would be making, as Creative Studio 3, you know, the ones behind the wildly successful Final Fantasy 14, made this. Honestly, how did these games even come out of the same studio? On paper, the game has everything to qualify for a good Final Fantasy game, but after playing it, I can honestly say it deserves the flack, and barely will be remembered in 10 years. But as always, let's start with the good before we tear this game a new butthole. The intro and first hour of this game makes it feel promising, as there are a lot of things set up to look forward to. The narrative utilizes a large world with the actions actually have tangible effects on the world. The main character seems interesting, albeit you start as a boy, so it still has room to grow. Okay, I let myself out. Small elements of visual identity of the franchise are here, such as chocobos, and of course, a Final Fantasy level music quality that is fantastic as always. The basic plot tentpoles are solid and makes me interested in what's going to happen until about an hour in. Now, before we begin, I do this out of love and wish I didn't have to rip it apart, but we need to address the protagonist problem, okay? Clive is a man that has the personality that's as bland as mayonnaise. Unfortunately, most of the supporting cast commences to be the same. Now, the visual appeal of these characters are decent, but incredibly desaturated and lifeless for a fantasy game. I believe this is due to the fact that designers felt that whimsical character design of the series is known for to be severely toned down for dark, gritty storytelling and half-baked realism that never hits its stride. Classic Final Fantasy characters like Tidus, Lightning, Sarah, Noctis, Sephiroth, Tifa, Aerith are all very visually unique. The writing then gives them a personality that enhances the visual storytelling accomplished through the design. However, Final Fantasy 16 does not succeed in doing this. So you have a rugged, rough-looking, dangerous guy. But the most dangerous part of his personality is that he may say, that's a job, when asked to kill the king of a country. Where is the storytelling in that? This issue is spread across almost the entire character roster. The only one that has something going for it is Titan, but his design is simple and bland, and I can't even say he holds a candle to the previous Final Fantasy boss design. I think what they were trying to do is make each kingdom seem cohesive with its character design, but they made everything too cohesive to the point where almost no one on the map stands out in the slightest. These characters being changed to the style leaves you with an open world that must carry the story and keep you enticed to go through it, which doesn't happen. It's just not that deep as the fantasy that would carry the game forward, like the huge world in the sky in Final Fantasy 13, the throne of a father in Final Fantasy 15, and the diverse biomes and enemies of Final Fantasy 12, and wild designs of 10. None of those are here for this game, as they tried to go with the more realistic style of NPCs, vistas, characters, and art direction. So you will see rolling hills and some dense greenery, but once you get to the desert, the short dopamine rush of the game looking incredible is gone. You have NPCs that have generic dialogue with no breadcrumb trails to that of a mystery or side plot or even a whisper of anything else that is going on in the huge world that these devs made. The world is large with very little to do, and the rewards for exploring are like 5 gil for a 15-minute walk. I'm not even kidding. I'm still mad about that. I literally walked for 15 minutes just to go get 5 gil. I felt like I was peed on by the time I got that 5 gil. Anyways, exploring Her To-Do as the game was eye-wateringly beautiful at times, but just completely void of activities. The activities besides the main story are side quests, time trials / combat trials, and hunts. That's it. Most of these are gated behind story progression too, so eventually you wisen up and just run through the story, as the side quests are mundane and never actually add anything of substance. Besides, some materials are for a lazy crafting system that seems just thrown in. On the bright side, the franchise toy box is open, and you can see this through the good old Final Fantasy style monsters like adamantoids, cactuars, and chocobos around you for you to fight, ride, and look at in 4K. This is nice, but appearances are, the bare minimum to be called a mainline Final Fantasy game. Keep in mind that they did have a $59 million budget, okay? And only sold 3.5 million units. Heck, I know of a few Final Fantasy titles that do better than this and don't get nearly the recognition, like World of Final Fantasy or Final Fantasy Chocobo Dungeon, and a few others that go and have the toy box open without having the mainline name slapped across the front of it. But the devs of Final Fantasy 16 did a great job of making summons not only be in the game, but a major role in the open world and story, as they are very powerful, world-changing beasts that are represented in the characters and influence and fictional cultures to which they hail from. Although the difficulty leaves some room to be desired, Final Fantasy 16 boasts the Devil May Cry style of hack and slash combo system, with the points and combo streaks taken off for ease of entry to new players. It feels satisfying, but as you get deeper in, quickly shows that there is no depth to the system, which hurts the game in the long term, as you can get the hang of combat quickly with no rewards for mastering or, taking unique angles with it. Enough about the guts of the game. The overall direction of how this game came out and ended up has me worried for the entire Final Fantasy franchise going forward. I noticed there is a slow but gentle pull of graphic flashiness over a memorable story and heart. These flashy gameplay segments that make you feel like you're so good at the game are often chosen over a story composed of timeless set of values that are relatable to the core audience, or just gamers that constantly go and play these games. Don't get me wrong, smooth and polished gameplay is always first and foremost when playing a game. But a great example of this is that there are parts of Final Fantasy 16 where you have dialogue choices that amount to no significant impact, just like Fallout 4. I know if it were Elden Ring or Dark Souls, I can expect the need to lock in, as every decision, small and great, have impact to where I will end up later on in that game. Final Fantasy 16 doesn't have the feeling of impact through weighty decisions at all. The focus seems to only be on trying to make the semi-open world have nice graphics. This is the second time, as I have played a Final Fantasy title where the game has focused on the wrong thing. Final Fantasy 15 and its open world was vast and mostly empty, with little consequences for anything. Feels like the Final Fantasy formula refuses to evolve from 15. Poor writing, open world design, realism over fantasy, and idiot-proof storytelling that play the current state of Final Fantasy mainline games. These seem adamant on giving bland characters a chance to show how much of a block of tofu they are, outside of I do good and hack stuff to pieces. It's a real shame too, because the overarching plot is good, and there is the outline of a narrative that could be really compelling. But instead of focusing on what matters, you have to get the micro events lined in a story to hit for the macro events to hit, and Square misses that. The overarching plot is compelling, but sitting through the dialogue is like watching paint dry. If you can't get the small stuff right, you can't move on to the big stuff. And don't expect the big stuff to hit if the small stuff is garbage. Maybe this game franchise is not for me anymore. I think as I'm writing this, only to remember just how impactful the previous titles were. Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 12 have been in my life, so is Square Enix just too big to succeed now? Are they a zombie company now dead on the inside but making moves on the outside? Perhaps writing and world design team from Final Fantasy may have been swapped for the MMORPG, where they know they can make a boatload of money. And yet Square Enix also makes Kingdom Hearts, a franchise that doesn't have this problem. Same with Dragon Quest, and really just Final Fantasy standalone games as of late. But I predict that until Final Fantasy MMORPG begins to fail, or large restructuring comes into play, these single-player standalone games will continue to suck. Creative Unit 3 can't handle an MMO and standalone games, and it shows, as map design truly seems to be copy and paste of the MMORPG. So what would it take for Square to fix this? Expand the side game a lot. Mini games that foster world building, dialogue that matters by deciding what empire to challenge first, and compelling strategies for taking down castles, removal of poopy hold triggers to open doors, or removal of simple repetitive tasks that add little to the game but just pad out the game time would definitely help things too. Instead, add food buffs, Vary the locations of the world by making them offer unique items, collectibles that matter strewn across the world. Add depth to the combat with rewards for getting into the deeper mechanics. The list of potential improvements is long, and the sky is the limit, truly. However, making your flagship successful MMORPG foot the bill for this half-baked single-player game is tragic and hurts even more when it fails. I think Square Enix needs to make a smaller title with an engaging world and gameplay for their next single-player entry, as currently their single-player dev team is releasing bland games back to back. Give me fewer, better-written characters, a smaller story, and a tighter dev team that knows how to push passion on a small budget. This would help a lot, as these large failures stack up quick. Currently, Square is also being bought out from the inside, forcibly might I add, and I want Square to stay Square. I think we can all agree a politically agenda-infested game by some third-party investor-led buyer is not what we want going forward. The best way to keep that from happening is for Square to get its act together and make some money. So, if I had to rate this game, I would give it a 5 out of 10. But that's just me. What do you think of Final Fantasy XVI? Was it the game you always wished for, or is it a hollow shell of a former Final Fantasy? You let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time, my lucky frogs.